Oh, I needed to do a little qigong shake before. Like,
Let's do it. Let's do a qigong shake.
ah.
Beautiful. So very, very thank you for being here, Elaine and Ragnhildur. Elaine in UK and Ragnhildur in the north of Iceland. And we're here to, with regards to this becoming book here, which is just about to happen. And we'll just first hear if you could introduce yourself and say who you are in the world, and maybe your first kind of reflection on that this book is happening at all. Who would like to start?
Okay, I'll go. Hi. Thank you for having me. My name is Hrafnhildur, and I am in Iceland, in Akureyri. I am excited that a book like this is coming out. I think there's great need for discussion around this topic. I think that both here in Iceland, but also in the world, we are shy to talk about intimacy and sex and things revolving around that. We talk more openly about violence, and it's more accepted. And I think that needs to change. And I feel like there's a shift just in my friends group of wanting to just talk about this a little more, or being able to read this about it and in an authentic way, you know. Yes, I'm a life coach and a health coach, amongst other things. A mom, a wife, yeah. And I'm happy to be here and discussing this deeper with you.
Thank you so much for giving your time, and you're also reading over, correcting things, and finding.
Yes, that's how you got me here.
So that's fantastic.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being here. Great. So that was Ragnhildur, and then we have Elaine.
Hi, I'm currently in London, and I'm here today because I met Matilda through my work in the last few years, and she's been a strong supporter and initiator, spreader of work around being a human, being an emotional, sexual, angry, expressive being. And that is primarily what I see my work to be. I work with sexuality, breath work, sexual body work and somatics, but also with elements of understanding how we are spirit and soul. So I feel like it's like a multi-layered conversation around our sexuality, which for me is very much linked to our sort of divine and spiritual nature, but also it's also a very human, animal, down to earth piece, you know, like how do we match those? And I think that's a big struggle for people. But on a more global scale, I work in many countries in the world, holding groups working with sexuality and sexual trauma and sexual dysfunction. And it's a massive piece of people's lives. And in the media and in the world, the only accepted versions of sexuality are the distortions. They're like the over objectification of, or the dysfunction of, or disconnectedness, you know. And so over the years, I've worked with many people who have what they would describe as addictions to pornography and inability to really be intimate and vulnerable. So I think this book is really important because it is not as simple and easy as we think it is, actually, to have all these things in alignment. there's so many factors that affect our capacity for intimate, romantic, loving sexual relationships. And I love the way that you split it up into all these components, because actually when people come at first to me often and they say, I have this problem with, you know, this part of my sex life or this part of orgasm, and they want like this issue looked at, it doesn't take long before we find out and we realize that there's childhood things, there's emotional things, there's fear things, there's, you know, there's work things, there's stress, anxiety. So how can we support people without making it seem too scary or impossible or insurmountable? How can we break it down into little chunks that we can approach and look at and change in a way that's manageable? So that's one of the things I really like, looking at the contents of the book. Thank you.
How great to hear, how great to hear. And there will be more to we will share more, and it will be available later to those who want. Oh, so fantastic to open the subject. So here we are for chapter number 2, which is called Nourishing. And just so you know, the whole thing, how the writing is me writing, and it's nothing changed. You know, it might be like a word corrected or so, but it's like pouring out of me like this, and I have not gone back. Oh, I need to put this in there or something. It's like, okay, now I'm going to write about this, and so it's pretty something. That's the way. So it's interesting about being nourished and be like responsible yourself. Yeah, the chapter 2, your reflections. Let's start somewhere.
I'm happy to begin. What you point to me in this chapter is one of the key pieces around relating in a healthy way, and that is, where are we not sourcing our own energy, and where are we taking energy from others, friends, lovers, partners? And quite often clients that I work with come with issues with, you know, relating and sexuality, and one of the first things I ask them is, like, where are you filling up from? Like, are you full of your own joy, your own connection, your own groundedness? And I often, because I'm a scientist by background, so I often describe it like, are you going around like a proton, you know, like a bubble covered in positive charges that is, you know, that wants to meet other bubbles with positive charges so you can share? Where the reality is that most people are actually depleted internally, and they're walking around like an electron with lots of negative charges, looking for some positive charge to become codependent with. And in fact, often what happens to these people is, other people, if they're quite healthy, can sense this negative charge, this like energy drain coming towards them, and they run off in the other direction most of the time, if they have any sense. Or they actually find that there's somewhere where they're negative and they get into this trading thing. So where can we understand that actually, unless we are full and we can sustain ourselves, we are always going to be in some form of codependency, some form of trading, and actually it's not sustainable. And what you say in the chapter about it becoming exhausting and depleting and resentment and all these things, and in the work that I do at ISTA, which you're aware of, when we work with the wheel of consent, we understand when we overgive, we become a martyr, we feel drained, we feel resentment. So, and that's actually probably the normal way that most people relate nowadays. So I think the first thing is, you know, going to nourish the self is key.
This is really, like, I think for many people, like a new way of thinking. You know, could I? Am I responsible for something here? You know, so but it's such a freedom of thinking in this way, and understanding also, like learning of how do I nourish myself.
Well, a thought that I have on this is that I find the coaching questions in this chapter really interesting. And Elaine, please, keep your mic open and jump in and catch my word if you want. Because from what I've learned over the last few years, especially when I'm coaching clients or I have self-compassion seminars, and I ask this question, what do you need right now? And people give me a blank face. They're like, what do you mean? What do I need now in this moment? I don't know. I haven't asked myself. And I think that, mainly most of us are so busy with everyday life and we're just getting things done. And we're in a kind of a rhythm of just, doing the same things and making our families work and all of that. And so taking the space to actually ask oneself, am I responsible for my nourishment? Am I getting nourishment? Or even, what do I want? Like, what is it that I need from my partner? Because many times we're just kind of bickering with our partners, not because they did something wrong, but because we don't even know what it is that we want from them. Mm. And if we're not telling them what we want, then of course they can't give it to us. So we first have to ask ourselves these questions. And so I think I could have read this chapter again and again, just with the thought of, okay, I should have a pen here, what is it that is nourishing me? And what is it that is nourishing me and my relationship? Or if I want to go deeper into specifics, what is it that I need from my partner as a partner or as a sexual partner or as a friend? Just having this clear conversation. And I think it starts with ourselves. We need to ask ourselves these tough questions, but give ourselves the space to ask them. Because if we don't ask, we don't know. And then we just end up somewhere,
It's really true. You're reminding me of one of the things that I used to always ask clients, like on the first session. And I work with a lot of practitioners, so a lot of people who work with people in body work and sexuality and different forms of what might be described as healing or transformational work. And I would say, make a list of the things that you do that fill yourself, like how do you recharge? And make a list of all the things that you're doing where you're giving your energy out, and look at the balance. Mm-hmm. Like, look at the balance. And actually they would look at this list of all the things that we're doing and all their commitments, and then, what am I filling up with? And actually, in order to get some form of nourishment, those need to be more balanced. And it might be, most people actually struggle to even think what that might be, or they would think of a couple of obvious things, but I would be saying to them, look at, like, what's the food you're eating? What exercise are you doing? How much time are you getting in nature? What conversations are you having with friends? How are you getting your physical touch needs met, whether that's nurturing or sexual or whatever it is. What do you enjoy doing? Do you enjoy going to the theater? Well, go to the theater. Like, what actually brings you up? And you need to do as much of that as you do of expending energy. Otherwise, you are going to be depleted. And when you were saying about, people don't know what they want, there's some exercises we do in body work, where working in pairs, where you ask someone to ask for some touch from someone else. And actually, I used to do this with clients, and sometimes you would say, don't say the first thing that comes into your head. Don't just say, oh, I'd like a shoulder massage or my hands rubbed. Feel your body and ask your body, what does your body want right now? And the truth is, most people have no idea. And I have stood for 15, 20 minutes with someone, waiting for them to try and actually find something genuine that they want, because they don't know. And the other interesting piece that I thought of when you spoke about partnerships is, sadly, we actually are mostly getting what we need by kind of underground dragging out of what it is we want, rather than naming it. Exactly. So we don't say what we need, but we kind of then start manipulating. And one thing I found really useful in relationships, particularly if I'm, you know, in a difficult time or something's challenging me, is not so much for the other person to save you or to leave you completely alone, but if they ask you, what do you need right now? And you know, whether, even if it's them that's perhaps at the source of whatever challenge, it's not the same as saving you when someone says, hey, is there something I could do to support you right now? And if you can feel into that and respond, that's kind of a healthy way of supporting, rather than, you know, you going off and sulking and banging doors and waiting for them to figure out what it is that you might want or need.
Or waiting for yourself to figure it out.
Yeah.
Good point.
So great thoughts about getting, really this is the whole like point of the book, you know, it's about starting to talk about that we can live more in bliss, we can live more, you know, satisfied, like in higher vibration, and it's possible. And what is needed for that, I had no idea. And Elaine, you can say very funny stories about how scared I was when I, for example, one defining step that I share about in the book is the training I did with Ista, where Elaine was the facilitator. I was so scared for a whole week doing all these kind of different new exercises for me. But what opened up was coming in contact with my own desires, and you know, what is really bubbling, who I really am and what's there. And I'm just so fascinated how I walked around like the largest part of my life, you know, with that closed down, not listening to, you know, the sensuality, the sexual, not listening to this amazing body that is here. So I don't know what your reflections is on this. Yeah.
I just want to add that, you know, there's many things that are in the way. There's conditioning and all, you know, cultural conditioning, religious conditioning. But actually, I think one of the biggest keys, and I think that's probably why you opened up in that week, what shifted is, until we connect with and express our emotional body, nothing can move. So
can you say that again? Can you say that again?
So until we connect with and express our emotional body, nothing else can move. So some people maybe don't know what I mean by emotional body, and I see it as a body in itself, but essentially it's the part of us that expresses our anger, sadness, grief, joy. And we are trained from a very early age as human beings in modern society to contain it, to shut it down, to stop it, to squash it, and that it's dangerous and it's not polite and blah, blah, particularly in the British society, you know, God forbid anybody should cry or scream or get angry, you know, like very polite. And this is the trap that is holding most people in a prison. And so one of the things that we do in that week, which you experienced, was actually go into that emotional body and give it permission. And most often there's a backlog of years worth of unexpressed emotions that need to move to get current so that you can actually feel your feelings. And until you can feel your anger and your rage and your sadness, you cannot feel passion, ecstasy, joy, etc. Now, there's obviously many other factors, but for me, that's probably one of the most foundational pieces. If you, and I work with people where they're like, I want to feel my sexuality and I want to feel, but they will not feel their feelings. And like, until you're willing to feel your feelings, you're not going to be able to access that, because you can't trade and negotiate. You don't get to choose what feelings you feel. Like, you have to be willing to feel them all. And it's scary, but it's one of the most valuable things to do for yourself as a human being, is to allow that, I think. Yeah.
So
I feel like I have to move my body when you say this. I have to like have it all go through.
So what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you know, I'm coming from a different perspective in this, and you guys have done so much work here. So what I'm hearing is that to be able to enter the bliss in the middle, you have to peel all the different layers of emotional things stuck in your physical body, kind of peeling them off and going through them in order to reach that bliss in the middle.
In a way, yes. But importantly, I think, is that it can sound like a big, scary job when you're like, you have to go through and peel off every layer, you know? And I would say it's important that to know that you don't have to go through every single piece of your life where you ever had a feeling you didn't feel it, you know, like in a big, long process. Actually, it can happen quite, when you start using emotional release tools and bioenergetics, it can actually start quite rapidly. And sometimes you don't even know what the story is. Like it could be something that happened 10 years ago or last week. It's letting that
stuck.
Move. Yeah.
Oh, I just feel, I kind of feel the relief of like letting go of you know, like stuck things. Wow.
I have a very strong memory of early on in my Tantra training where, and I was dealing with a lot of grief, and that's why I ended up going there. But I remember like 8 months into this year-long course, and we were doing this, like invited into emotional release to let our energy move, and I was like, there, I'm not angry, you know. And this beautiful my Tantra teacher was like, you know, I obviously can't tell you how you feel, but I would have a sense that perhaps, you know, you're suppressing some anger. No, I'm not angry about it at all. This was about a very big event in my life. And within about 20 minutes, there was 2 people holding a mattress against the wall, and I was banging and kicking the hell out of the mattress in like the biggest fit of rage. And you know, it was safe. It was, you know, not directed at anyone. So this is the other thing, is like, people usually spew their rage and anger out, like trolley rage, shopping rage, inappropriately, and therefore they're frightened. But if you can move the energy in a safe way, not direct to anyone else, not hurt yourself, it's actually, you know, great. And I was there for ages. And at the end, I remember one of the men that was a dear friend turning around to me and saying, no, you're not angry. You're not angry. I was like tears streaming down my face. My fists were sore from pounding this mattress. But actually, the space that I made inside of myself was incredible. Yeah.
How did that feel afterwards?
It felt kind of euphoric, you know, because for me, all the emotions are like a different vibration of energy. So actually there's a similarity. So in expression of a lot of deep emotion can feel very similar to bliss, because obviously chemicals and many things move. But it feels like, for me, what I experience is I can feel like my physical body just fizzing and letting go of everything, and space coming. And then usually heart opening, or, you know, connecting more with the belly, being able to breathe deeper in the body, less monkey mind, because actually what happens is this energy gets trapped in the head and we just go round and round and round in thoughts. Yeah, I'm just going to plug myself in. Oh, my battery's going to die.
Something that I'd like to share also.
There we go.
Because this is like what you're saying, Elaine. It's like a tool to feel bliss is to release emotions. So you allow yourself to feel the whole range. You know, to be angry and to, you know, to have access to everything. That's also access to bliss. I just want to share also, because I had no idea, but the work that I'm doing with coaching people, you know, sitting, not expressing crazy anger, but sitting like in conversations, which I've done for 15 years now. In my point of view, all these hours with listening to people, supporting their development in conversation, not with emotional release, but, you know, like supporting a space for someone else, like that also has brought me to open myself up, because I'm like breathing into whatever is there for the person holding the space. So all that is like a boot camp also for this, like opening up the body in how I see it. I don't know if you relate to that, Ragnhildur, in any way.
I do. Back to the authenticity, kind of, when people are in a space of vulnerability and authenticity. For me, that's being brave. That's extremely brave. And it, you know, when hearts speak, when people speak from the heart in authentic ways, it touches you. It reaches you. It's heart opening. Exactly. And so I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
When did you start asking yourself these questions that you're asking in chapter 2?
Yeah, that's really good. I like that you ask me questions about these things also. It's beautiful. Well, I have asked these many times because to stay together in a relationship is not like a dance and easy. It's really like work to do, in my point of view. So it's really no, I have seen how I have, for example, my first thought while not feeling well is there's something wrong with him. You know, it's just like automatic. Okay, I probably need to get rid of him now. You know, when I don't feel well, the first thought is, okay, something wrong with the relationship. I need to get rid of that. To me, that today is like, it's like a signal. If there's something wrong with him, I need to check on myself. You know, that's often what it is. And often what it is has been during the years is that I am bored. You know, that I'm not nourished, that I'm not satisfied myself with whatever part it is in my life, my work environment, or, you know, being, you know, whatever, you know. So yeah, we in a long relationship of several decades, we have gone through all possible crisis, of course. So I could write another book about crisis, you know. You know, there are endless of stories of amazing things. So this, like, always, like, I think the thought of turning back to myself is one muscle that I've practiced a lot, and that is really key, I think, and very valuable one, and pretty daring in a way, not pointing a finger at someone else, but going back to myself. Yeah, that was one piece of answer.
So I'm also interested in, because I know you, and I know how excited you are about this book. What is it that you're wanting the reader to take out of it?
The whole point is, it's for me, you know, if you read the book, you hear that in chapter 1 I'm asking, or I'm telling that someone asked me, why are you not sharing that you're having sex daily for many years, and how that works for you. It's amazing. And I have just not known how, you know, I have no idea how I share that. I don't know. Yeah, so I've been like writing over the years and trying to figure that out. Yeah, so the whole, you know, to me to hear told to me that I'm not sharing, it's like an insult, you know, to myself. It's like, what? Life is about sharing, and here I am not sharing. What is happening? So it's like an urge. We're here to share. We're here to, like, give away the light, the bliss, the everything we can. So it comes from there, and then it's, my aim is to, like, show I'm walking around in this amazing experience, which I understand not everyone does. And I want to, like, show what's happening. I want to, like, give it away. So it's my painting. It's like something to give away, and you just choose whatever you will do with it. I have no idea what you will do with it. My wish is that you will be, you know, touched in some way, to kind of start to think of what you're doing in some way. That's my wish. If that would not do anything, then we can just take it off the market. You know, so it's my thought is to, like, have something move. Yeah.
I'm sure it will too.
Yeah, why? You can tell me what you think. What?
Well, You ask a lot of great questions. And for me, that's maybe it's because I'm a coach and I relate to good questions and I relate to reflecting and I like to work on myself. And if something makes me a little uncomfortable or something, I really like to look at it. Okay, why is this making me uncomfortable? Why am I, what is going on here? And like you said, I really like to put the spotlight on myself there and be like, okay, so somebody's doing something and it's provoking an emotion in me. Where's that coming from and why? And is it something that I want to change or something that I want to do something about? And so, yeah, for me, there are a lot of questions that I feel I would like to take time for myself to answer. And I could easily see where people need to share, and for me, maybe it's because that makes me more comfortable, or it's a setting that I've been in before. But I have a lot of things in my backpack or emotional buffering or something, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about this. Or even when you asked me to join on this call, and I'm like, what am I going to talk about? I'm no specialist in this matter. But I think that's where the authenticity comes in, and us regular people who are not doing this for we're just living beings, and we want to experience good emotions, and we want to live healthy lives. And I think this is a huge part that is in some ways in shame. I think a lot of women I know carry shame around sexuality. And I just find so many aspects of this whole thing interesting. Like, why is it that we are there? Why is it that it's easier to talk about pretty much anything rather than intimacy or sexuality? Or, we're allowed to talk about some things and other we just don't, so I feel this need around me, at least, of women wanting to talk about those things. Like, no, my mom never talked about that to me, or the changing bodies or menopause, or like nobody's talking about it. Like, let's talk. Let's open up a conversation. And it doesn't have to be like Elaine says in such a beautiful way. It doesn't mean that we have to go through every single thing in our backpack in order to experience some good things, good emotions. But we need to at least stir around in it and see what we want to take out.
As you're saying that, I'm like so grateful that actually my current reality of the world is most of the time everyone talks about sexuality. Almost everything in my Facebook feed is to do with sex. Almost everything in my life is somehow connected to sex, whether it's my own or someone else's. And so but I'm not so disconnected from the world that I don't realize that the majority of the world, this is not normal conversation. But actually what I know and what I've said is you just give people 5% permission and space, and it will be out. They don't need much. So I think part of the key to the book and why it's important is permission. And we shouldn't need permission actually to talk about sexuality. We absolutely shouldn't need it, but somehow we do. So every time one person shares, someone else shares, and actually compared to 10 years ago, actually there's so much more out there around conscious sexuality. But I would say these are topics to be explored in more depth, but I feel that the way that you're approaching it, Matilda, with this book is more accessible to people and relatable. But actually, if people understand that sexuality and sexual energy, and I'm talking about moving it on your own, and there's a lot of shame around masturbation, and self-pleasuring is one of the things I teach a lot. So whether you're moving it on your own, whether you're moving it with nature, whether you're moving it with a partner, it is medicine. It is a form of prayer. It is a form of rejuvenation. It is a form of regeneration. And actually, if we don't understand as human beings that actually, you know, the reason we have this capacity is because we're meant to use it and be connected to it. Our vitality is less. And so when I teach self-pleasuring, I say we should all have our sex switched on all the time, right? Not maybe at 10, but like humming at 1 or 2, you know, the engine, because the sexual energy is related to the life force. And actually, when we close that down, our life force is shut down. So people tend to go, I go to work, I switch my sex off. I meet my partner, I switch it on. I do something else, I switch it off. But actually, the humming and the connection and the bubbling of that, actually, if we want to be alive, should be on all the time. So, you know, that's like one of the key pieces. And definitely menopause. Menopause is now showing up on my Facebook feed everywhere. Like women are reclaiming the ecstatic crone. And in fact, as I've been on that journey myself the last couple of years, in the last 2 weeks, I've been making my non-tantra, non-sexuality friends laugh by sending them via Amazon packages of vaginal moisturizers, because I realized that people are like up for talking about the night sweats and the hot flushes, but no one's talking about vaginal atrophy, vaginal dryness, very undiagnosed. So yeah, I'm living in this kind of slightly skewed universe, but it tends to come into these areas, and it will make its way into the mainstream, because people will start to come and people will start to speak. But particularly the third phase of life for people in female bodies actually has been shrouded with a shrinkage of sexuality. And that is not my experience from my life, from the people I know. Mm-hmm. And just to say that you were saying there about women want to talk about these things, and I would say so do men. And I have almost deliberately, not almost, deliberately chosen to run groups of mixed genders, of all genders, when speaking about these things, because although, you know, women's spaces and men's spaces are valuable, there's something else that comes from talking about shame, orgasm, masturbation, dysfunction, with both or all genders rather in a room, because people then start to see and start to understand, like, men don't have it all easy, women don't have it all easy, someone who's non-binary doesn't have it all easy, someone who's trans doesn't have it all easy, you know. So particularly I think when we start with self-pleasuring, because that is where the deepest root around sexuality lies, because churches and many reasons as to why it's been massively shamed. And the other piece, which I just, as you were speaking, Matilda, and also as you were speaking, and I'm going to try and pronounce your name properly, and I'm not going to manage it, but I'm going to do it, Hersenfuller.
Yeah, that's fine.
Enough. Apologies for my anxiety. When you were saying, like, so the emotional body is one piece in life that's really key. And another piece in life that's really key, I think, is understanding projection. You know, and that's what you've both been naming with this thing of like bringing it back to me. So until we understand projection, and that means, you know, projecting either our flaws or our frustrations or our admiration, our golden shadow onto someone else, or until we understand that all these mirrors are showing up to teach us, then we're just going to distort all our intimacy, and we're going to sabotage it, and we're going to control it. So as human beings, when we start to see our patterns and see our fears and understand that actually everything that happens is about where we are coming from, then that in itself, and I think coaching obviously is one of the really big supporting ways to get people to turn the finger around, but not without compassion. So the thing that I think is hard is when, you know, people start to look at their shadow and they start and they judge themselves harshly, and they think it makes them a bad person or whatever. Like, compassion, that it's not surprising that we have these patterns and we have these things and we're all a bit messed up. And we're trying to find our way to deal with other people who are messed up, maybe in the same way, maybe in different ways. And loving those parts of ourselves rather than trying to get rid of them or shame them or shut them down. So yeah, I mean, there's so many pieces that that could come, and these questions of, as you said, that where do I feel slightly uncomfortable and why? And particularly around sexuality, like, what is the thing I don't want to say about my sex life? That's a good question to ask someone. What is the thing I don't want to share about my sexuality? Not all the things that I want to share, but like, what is that little thing in the back of my head about my body or my judgment or my inadequacy as I see it, or my desire. So working with people's, one of the things I work with is core erotic theme and fantasy. And when you start to delve into people's fantasies, sexual fantasies, and they share them in a way that they understand, doesn't mean they're necessarily, you know, distorted or perverted, that the fantasy mind works in a way that is working with metaphors and that is working with themes, then that can release a lot of shame, because many people think there's something slightly wrong with them and the way that they maybe fantasize or desire sex. And it may be that actually they don't desire to have sex in the way that these fantasies are, but they desire the theme of it. So understanding that certain fantasies that are about being overpowered are actually related to the desire for surrender, the desire to, you know, to be, to let go of control. So that's the other piece I think that makes a big difference to sexuality, is talking about these in sex or body work, we call them troublesome turn-ons. Like, where can we go to the parts of us that make us feel slightly uncomfortable and ashamed in our sexuality, and name those. Because once you name them, once they're out of the bag, they don't have the power. And you usually find out that many other people in the room also have things that they're disturbed about, and it becomes like the new normal, you know, to have those slightly whether it's actually a result of being sexually suppressed as a child by religion, or whether it's a result of being part of the hippie movement of free love, and you've actually become quite the opposite. You know, like, often we're just a reaction to our environment in early life.
Oh, there's so many points of wisdom. There's so many points of wisdom. I'm feeling like the whole shaming. I feel it in my body. You know, when talking about shame, I feel it in my body, and the whole process of, am I allowed to write like this? You know, can I show? The other day I wanted so much to show this to a group of 8 people that we were having dinner, haven't shared with them, and I was so afraid. You know, even it's in a way it feels easier to send it out on Facebook. Okay, now the book is out, than to tell my friends, see, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, so there's, even though this is happening, it's like all these layers of shaming, you know, which is, and in a way, what you say, Ragnhildur, when you feel there's like a little uncomfortable, go there. I'm like in the middle of that mist. I'm like, this is very uncomfortable. It would be a lot easier not to do it. So I'm very much dealing with, this needs to happen. You know, that it's like my sign when I stand in front of something that I really don't dare to meet today. That is okay. You know, that's what I'm doing, and I have to like feel it through and ask for your support, and you know, that's what I'm dealing with.
So what happens when you show it? You know, how are you gonna feel?
Yeah, when I show it, it opens up, like you said. Like, I have no idea what the book will do with everyone, what will happen with it, you know. But for example, when I showed it there, all of a sudden in that group, they know a little bit more about me. They all got, of course, all these question marks. You know, it kind of starts things in their couples, in their relationships, and to themselves. We started to talk about things close to sex, and we didn't go into it at that time, but so it's like yeah, like opening curtains or relieving, and in a way sorry.
It opened up the conversations.
Yeah, and also, you know, there are several people in like the close family of mine, you know, the larger family, that have no idea that this is happening, and I still have to like start to. So in a way, I think it's so, you know, the whole thing about feeling fantastic and not being able to talk about it. It's so crazy. It's so awkward. The whole thing, that what's most beautiful, we close in behind the door between two people in the dark and not talk about it. It's like complete craziness. That's why ISTA is kind of blowing the top of, you know, a lot of layers around this. But that's also, you know, I have 4 children. We close the door. We even lock the door to be by ourselves. Yeah. And it works fantastically for us. But it's still like really awkward that the most beautiful thing I have with my life partner, they never see. You know, the children never see our intimacy, you know. So to me, that's something not as it should be in a way, you know. So that's like the urge comes from there. I don't know. I don't have the answer to all questions, but the urge is like from there.
Not to hide away.
And it can be, you know, it shouldn't be, as you say, but it can be a big step in life to put yourself out there around sexuality, because there's still a lot of fear. And so actually a few things happen. One is people start to question their own sex life, and it might make them feel insecure. So you might challenge them, and they get their shame gets activated. So they somehow judge you and project their judgment onto you. You know, the other thing is there still is this real Puritan idea that exists in many of us, even if we don't believe it. So your wider family, and it's like breaking the code. And quite a lot of the workshops that I offer have orgasm in the title, like orgasmic yoga, full body orgasm. And I had like an old friend from university last year message me and say, do you ever get orgasm in the title, or you just post it on social media and you just post it on your website, you know? And I was like, no, not anymore. You know, but there was a time when I was a bit like, I had led a very previously professional life for 20 years as a medical scientist with like clinical and orgasm and body orgasm and shamanic breath work and
Oh, the sound is a little bad now. Yeah, comes and goes.
I lost her.
Yeah, you're frozen, Elaine, at the moment. I might just pick up, since we don't know if we have her there. The thing also for me is the freedom of describing what's happening in, as you know, who have read through the whole book, like to say the words vagina and lips and nipple and sex and sexual area, and to be able to just name it and like freely speak about this beautiful, to feel sexual, to feel sensual, you know. I kind of just, that's also what have made it so wonderful to do the writing, because it's really been like a quality times for me with myself. Yeah.
To me, in some parts, I felt like I was peeking into your diary. Like I was reading some things that were, yeah, diary is what constantly came to my mind. And I think if the reader uses the the tools for themselves to reflect, it can be really healthy.
Hello. Kicked off then. I'm back.
Yeah, we're gonna. You have to re-say what you said, but let's just complete what Framtinder is in the middle of. You say it's like reading a diary or my diary. So
yes,
and reflection on that, because it's very intimate. It's like intimate.
It is, but I think, at least for me, the point isn't to understand exactly at every time what you meant as the writer, but actually how that makes me feel, what I'm reflecting in myself, and not to cast judgment and on you as the writer.
That's so beautiful.
But you know what it awakens, or what it moves, or what it makes me like, you know, what it does to me, and figuring out why. And again, on self-compassion, like Elaine was talking about, I think that's kind of the net that we can use to grab us in every single situation. We need to treat ourselves as well as others with compassion. And so you're extremely brave to me. And of course, you're such a pioneer. And you've been my mentor for a long time. So I once told you that if you were onto something, even though I thought it was a crazy idea, whatever it was, like if Matilda is doing it, then she must be onto something, and then I'm ready to hear more. You know, that would definitely be a cue for me, like, okay, I'll listen. She knows something that I don't.
Thank you for honoring that. That's very beautiful.
Absolutely. You're
I'm just going to connect with that point, that reading about my bodily sensations, like sexual, sensual bodily sensation, it's so fantastic how you can see, oh, how are my bodily sensations? You know, it's like you know, good or bad, mine doesn't matter. It's just, you know, we have constantly these extraordinary sensations, being aware of it or not being aware of it. That's like also the point, like the freedom of just sharing it. My wish is that someone becomes happy because they kind of allow themselves to notice themselves. That's like the longing. Yeah.
As I was listening to you, I was thinking of something that I often share with people, which is it's almost like it should be a crime to be a human being with a body and not use it and enjoy it in the way that actually we can. And actually the truth for most human beings, most of the time, is we don't. Like every day we have this, like I love the metaphors of, like, you know, learning to play your body like, you know, the most precious instrument you will ever own, but like where we have capacity, not just in the physical body. And as Matilda knows, I work a lot with the energy body and understanding like how pleasure and bliss, and how to, one of the beauties of working with Tantra is understanding how to connect the spiritual bliss with sexual energy. But there's minefields of beautiful experiences that are not just, people sometimes think these things are maybe superficial or hedonistic. You know, there's a judgment about, well, if all I did was all lie around all day having body orgasms, you know, how would the world ever, you know, get anything done? And the truth is, probably the world would be a lot better off. We'd have a lot less wars. We'd probably have a lot less, you know, corruption. So for me, it's like, and people can choose to take it or not, but it's almost like a duty. Like I have this body and I'm just like letting it grow old and waste, and having the pleasure of seeing people awaken this capacity in them when they're very young, you know. And some of them are 25 and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe it's taken me this long. And I'm like, this long? Like, I've just been working with someone who's 75, you know, and just for the first time actually felt some pleasure in their genitals for the first time in their life. So it's never too late, like it's never too early. But one day, whatever your spiritual belief is, one day this body will die and we will no longer have this body. And one day this body will be, you know, a bit older or a bit less able or maybe more able. It's a massive gift, and most of us, and none of us are told this, is, you know, we really have to understand this is not our fault. Like, nobody tells us. They tell us how not to get pregnant, not to get a sexually transmitted infection. They don't tell us, like, this body is part of exploring it is important. I often think that we know what's in solar system. We know the names of the stars in the other galaxies, and many people don't know where the G spot is, or where the cervix is, or you know, can't connect inside their body. It's like some black hole. So disembodiment is an epidemic right now, and it's an epidemic because of computers, because of technology, because of the way we work, because we're so busy in our heads. So the first other key piece, and there's so many key pieces, is get in your body. That's, you know, you won't be able to feel any of this if you're not actually in your body. So anything like dancing, like massage, like self-touch, anything that brings you more into your body will make this more powerful, and will make it possible, for sure.
I'm so excited that you guys are sharing these things, and that this information is out there. And I'm excited to, you know, go to drink tea with my friend, and we'll talk about these things like it's any other, you know, because it is important.
It's just like a song in my ears, you know. This is my way. It completely resonates, Elaine, in that it's our duty, you know. It's our possibility, and it's also our duty to, like, feel as well as we can, take care of ourselves as well as we can, and also what I am fascinated about is that hard is not always the way it needs to be, you know. Pleasure opens up growth. So being in pleasure is the way of transformation. So yes, you know, life is hard in between, absolutely, and hard. We haven't not, you know, it doesn't disappear to disagree and be angry and, you know, everything. But that pleasure is such a tool for transformation. It's such a tool for opening up your heart, your mind, your emotional everything. And I just love that is like a fact.
And as you know, one of the courses that I developed last few years is a course called Master Your Pleasure. And, you know, after working with people with my primary opening was through grief and through the death of my brother in a very dramatic circumstances, was what cracked me to fall apart. But actually, and grief is important and anger is important, but actually it's almost more noble to be sad or to be angry. It's almost more acceptable in spiritual circles than it is to be in pleasure. So there's still this shame associated with pleasure. So when I created this course, I was like, actually, we can heal through pleasure. It doesn't all have to be like torture, because actually pleasure regenerates us. But then I find out that many people can't access their pleasure, don't know what pleasure is. And there's this model I work with, which is 8-level model based on human development, from being a fetus in the womb, and pleasure of resting through games and play, mental, emotional pleasure. And this is a cascade that gives us access to sensual, sexual, spiritual pleasure at the other end. So people have this idea of pleasure has to be about sex, but actually it's about a million other things. It's about laughter. It's about kind thoughts. It's about, you know, allowing yourself to feel your emotions. So not only do we, and last thing I'm going to say is everyone has set a pleasure ceiling for themselves. There's like a limit. There's like a self-set limit of that is enough pleasure. And that's one of the things I love exploring with people, like, what's enough? No, that's enough, because any more might be too much. I might lose myself. I might get lost. I might, you know, there's all these fears. So expanding your pleasure capacity and expanding your pleasure ceiling is something that I've been really passionate about working with people on. So, yeah.
My mind is like right now, Elaine, this is so fascinating what you're saying, and the shame around pleasure. And I would love for people to look at that. I know I have to. And so, you know, that we're not just growing through pain and through difficulties, but like you said, Matilda, there can be growth through pleasure, and to see if we've actually put a roof on it and why. That is fascinating. That is truly fascinating. You guys are just dropping, you know, gold here.
Absolutely, and we're about to complete. So in the end, I'm just going to share from me. That's also something that I had no idea when my dear partner came with the challenge. Let's have daily sex. I had no idea that my pleasure capacity would expand. That's one of the outcomes. I'm still expanding. Like, can I go into be sexual? Can I be in orgasm longer? This is. Today I'm very trained. You know, after 12 years of daily sex, for real. So I have hands-on practical experience of this, and it's just, it kind of must be shared in a way. Yeah. Thank you so much, dears. I'm very grateful for you to join this journey, and you're also so important, everyone, everywhere.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all of your sharing, and I wish you the best of luck with your book. So exciting.
Yes, it's lovely to meet you and lovely to spend time with you, Matilda. And I think it's also really beautiful and important that it's coming from someone who seems like a relatable being, you know. Like, one of the things that I find with my work is people are like, you can't be so woo-woo because you used to hold down a job and work clinically for 20 years, so you can't be a complete, you know, airhead. So I think that, you know, I sense that your real life practical experience, you're writing about something that you understand, you're not writing about the theory with no experience, and you're an extraordinary, ordinary being. So I think it will be well received coming from you, and I wish you like huge success with it.
Thank you. And an ordinary, extraordinary being. I like that. I like that very much. And that's also why, for example, this, you know, the cover, it's a selfie I took of myself. It's not, no makeup. It's just like a regular day, and that's the whole thing. It's not black leather, fancy kink. You know, it's not about that at all. So thank you for like, that's who I want to be, and I want to share in why of that in later. Thank you so much. We could. Thank you for now.